What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday, which means Monday Mail Day, and I'm not playing around. I picked a lot of questions. Hit a thumb up by the questions I'll be answering. Probably picked too many, so I might not be able to go into as much detail with some of them, but here goes nothing. Let's get it in. First question is from AJ's. First things first, why are people disliking? People stay with the hate. Comes with the territory, you already know. Second portion. Last week, I was having a conversation with a guy on Instagram about Triple G. I called Triple G's resume trash, and the guy came to Triple G's defense. I acknowledge that Triple G is being ducked by some, but being ducked feared doesn't make him elite. With that being said, I went on to compare Triple G's situation to the Black Murderers Row. What's your take on it, Ego? Oh yeah, the guy I was having a conversation with said he was going to ask you about it. He also said in the beginning of the conversation, I made up the term Black Murderers Row and called me a casual for using the term. Laugh out loud. Now, the Black Murderers Row, you guys should all do your research on that. That's actually a thing. It's not made up. And it was basically, it was a group of black fighters who were being avoided, and the other popular fighters that were non-black didn't want to fight them, so they end up having to like fight each other or just stay on the shelf. I don't really understand the question. You're comparing Triple G's situation to the Black Murderers Row. I mean, bottom line is this. I've said it time and time again. Triple G is a skilled fighter. He's a good fighter. Hell of an amateur pedigree. Silver medalist. But we will not know how good he is until he steps in with somebody who has momentum, who's a known elite person with some intangibles or attributes to offset his. Like for me, I think a guy like Roy Jones Jr. would be in his prime, of course. I'm not talking about now. Roy Jones is fighting fans and shit. One of my favorite fighters of all time. I think a guy like Roy Jones Jr., style-wise, in his prime, at middleweight, that type of style would be a hell of a test and would be the types of... Roy Jones exudes the types of things that I need to see from Triple G to see how good he is. Roy Jones had speed. He was unorthodox. He had power in both hands, things like that. And I don't know in terms of height. Met Roy Jones. I think Triple G and him might be around the same height, to be honest. But just things like that. Maybe someone who's taller, someone who has power in both hands, someone who's undefeated, somebody who's slick, things like that. We have to see him in there with an elite person. He's fought different guys like Curtis Stevens had the power, but he was mad short. Willie Monroe had kind of a slick style and he was a southpaw, but he had 6 knockouts. So we need for Triple G to fight someone that's going to put it all together. Again, I understand some people, I do think some people didn't want to fight. Miguel Cotto, I don't think wanted to fight him. It doesn't look like Canelo even wants to fight him. And Billy Joe Saunders, people like that. But you can't let other people define your career. They're saying he hits like a cruiserweight and all this stuff, light heavyweight, and he was wrecking Sergey Kovalev. That's what they said. That's what Abel Sanchez is saying. He was like, oh, he was beating down on Sergey Kovalev, who's a light heavyweight with cracks. Then prove it. Move up. If you can't get anybody to fight you that's going to get you the name and the recognition that you deserve, that you're capable of, then do what the other greats have done and move up. Andre Ward, people said he cleaned out the Super 6 and he cleaned out the division. What did he just do his last fight? He moved up. Period. Next question from Arab King, my dude. Do you think AB, about Biscuits going off on Floyd was staged because it seemed real as fuck? The way Broner was expressing his feelings, but also seemed too predictable and stylistically. Do you think Floyd versus Danny Garcia is an easier fight for Floyd than a Broner fight, even though we all know he could beat both? Keep up the great productive work. Number one, laugh out loud. Yeah, I think Floyd beats both Broner and Garcia. Stylistically, since Garcia has showed an immense amount of struggle and trouble with pure boxers, guys with a good jab, Floyd got a lot. Floyd got the inside game. He has a good jab and stuff. He's a complete fighter. So I would say Broner would probably be the harder fight, even though I don't think Broner can beat Mayweather. But just because they're both African-American, both athletic, Broner is pretty big, just like Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia he's slow. And I think speed is a good, there's not one way to beat Floyd Mayweather from what I've seen. you have to yourself be a complete fighter. Pacquiao had speed. Guys like Canelo had hand speed. Zab Judah had speed and was a southpaw. You have to have multiple things because Floyd gives you so many different looks. So I think Garcia is just too slow. He's a good counterpuncher, but you're going up with the counterpunch king with 72-inch arms. His reach is ridiculous. People don't realize that. Garcia, from what it looks like, has short arms. So I think the fact that Adrian Broner's flashy, I don't think he would beat Floyd, but I think that would be a little bit more of a I think Broner could win more rounds against Floyd Mayweather than just because Broner has heart too and chin. Like, he has a good chin. Danny Garcia has a good chin as well, but I just think stylistically Broner would be, based on what he does well, would be more of a competitive fight, or he would have more rounds, I guess is the best way to put it. Next question is from Electric Volcano. Kind of out of context, but is really Andre Ward black? He looks Arabic, in my honest opinion. Yes, he's black, he's biracial, he's mixed. He's Irish and black. So, I don't know. He's not an Arabic, but he's black and Irish. That's his nationality, black and white. Ward, like Irish Mickey Ward, Andre Ward, he's Irish. Next question is from Gold. What current fighters at 147, in your opinion, do you think is the best all around technically, not including Floyd Mayweather because he's retired? I would say probably Kell Brook. And which current fighter at 147 do you think will dominate the division in the future? Great channel. Ego, keep doing your thing. It's between Earl Spence, Kell Brook, and Keith Thurman, I would say. Those guys. Earl Spence has to just get more like on the job training as a pro to clean up little things and step up in competition. Keith Thurman, if he beats Porter, especially if he does it devastatingly, then, I mean, the sky's the limit for him. Kell Brook beat Sean Porter, but like, let's say Keith Thurman went in there and wrecked Sean Porter and knocked him out. He's a real problem. And then I like Kell Brook a lot. I think he's a big welterweight. He just needs to get back to fighting guys like Porter or better, you know what I'm saying? Because after the Porter fight, Kell Brook's resume really just, you start allegedly fighting mandatories, but yeah, come on, man. He's fighting JoJo Dan, then he beats him, then he fights Kevin Bezier, a guy who lost to JoJo Dan twice. He's fighting just people that don't make sense. So bottom line, Kell Brook is up there. He needs to get back to the solid names because he's kind of backtracked. Next question is from Ali Diego 619. Do you think Mayweather versus Broner happens next? It could reach 2 million pay-per-views buys. I personally do. Just want your opinion on it. 2 million is kind of high, but I think it could do well. I don't know if it'll do quite 2 million. 2 million, because you look at Cotto Canelo, which did under 1 million. It did like 900,000. So I don't know if it'll do 2 million with this current pay-per-view climate, but I think it could do 1.4 to 2 million, somewhere around there. And it's simply because they're two loudmouth type of personalities. Broner's going to sell the fight. They used to be friends. It's a great backstory. So I think he could do great numbers. I don't know if it'd do quite 2 million, but I think he could do great numbers. Definitely hit over 1 million for sure. Just based on it's. And see, the other thing is, the good thing, unlike Mayweather versus Pacquiao, they're both on the same side, the Al Heyman side. So it'd be easy to make an all access for this. Unlike Floyd was with Showtime, who does all access, and Pacquiao was with HBO, who does the 24/7 series, and you had co-promotion, and the fight took so long to negotiate. You didn't have that much time before the actual fight, so they didn't do anything like that. But with Broner and Mayweather both being with Al Heyman, you could do that. So this could have the proper build-up. So that's my opinion. Next question, Jose Garcia. What are your thoughts on Kell Brook wanting a Triple G fight? I mean, I give him kudos if he's really serious about it. He said he'll fight him at 157, or Eddie Hearn said it. I don't see it happening, but hell, anybody with a name that has a good style against Triple G, I'm all for it. So props to Kell Brook if he goes through with it. But the thing is, like, you're not even fighting since Sean Porter. And Amir Khan said this when I interviewed him. I asked him about this. And what he said was, I feel him on. He basically said, like, you're not even fighting the top guys at 47, so you're gonna move up another 10 pounds and fight the guy who's the quote unquote boogeyman of the middleweight division. That just doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? You're fighting Jojo Dan. I mean, and either way, even if you are serious about it, Jojo Dan and Kevin Beziers don't really prepare you for what Golovkin does well. So it's not a good preparation, even if he's serious. But I think he should, if he wants to fight him, fight him. But I think either way, whoever he fights, Kell Brook needs to fight a big name. Both of them, Triple G and Kell Brook, they need to fight a big name and a solid opponent with a good style against their style. Next question is from Chris Jackson. What's up, Ego? I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Adrian Broner versus Juan Manuel Marquez at 147? I love it. Broner called out Marquez years ago. He was hitting the heavy bag and called him out. Nothing came. Who would you give the edge to? Some people are going to get mad. Marquez is one of my favorite counterpunchers. I'll give the edge to Broner. He's big. Marquez is kind of small. He's older. He's been inactive for a little while. He's coming off a leg injury. Marquez, and this is the other thing, like I said, this is the thing. People, oh, you're just saying Broner. Broner will get tore up by Marquez. It's possible. Marquez is a good counterpuncher, but the reason I would give the edge to Broner is because he's very athletic. Marquez has always struggled with guys with speed. Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Tim Bradley has good speed. Athletic guys like Mayweather, like Bradley, right? Guys with power. I think Adrian Broner, as he is his power, I mean, he has 2 back-to-back stoppages. He knocked Sean Porter down, so his power has been looking pretty flashy lately, right? He definitely had power at 130, 135. So the thing is, guys like Michael Katsidis were able to hurt Juan Manuel Marquez. Mike Alvarado was getting dominated coming off a Ruslan Provodnikov loss. He fought Marquez at a catchweight. Mike Alvarado is a 140-pound fighter, and if I'm not mistaken, they fought at a catchweight of like 144, so a new weight division. Marquez was dominating him, knocked Alvarado down. He like sent him across the whole damn ring, and the very next round, Marquez gets knocked down in a fight he was otherwise dominating. So, and he almost got, if you guys remember, I think it might have been the 12th round. See, I know my boxing. When Marquez fought Timothy Bradley, I think it was the 12th round, Bradley staggered him and his glove almost touched. He was like falling back and had to catch his balance. So the fact that Marquez is not the biggest dude, inactivity and things like that, Broner's athletic with some power, speed. I think Broner would probably beat Marquez. I would say a decision. Marquez has never been stopped, but I would give the edge at this point to Broner. Now, if you're talking about prime or something, that's something different. But if we're talking about right today, Broner's he's been more active, and Marquez struggles with speed. He gets knocked down. You're getting knocked down by, some people are going to leave crazy comments, but know your boxing. He was, again, dominating Mike Alvarado, who had never fought above 140 pounds that I can remember, and he was dominating him, and he still got knocked down by him. And Mike Alvarado hasn't really looked great he was coming off a Ruslan Provodnikov loss. So Broner's big, he's strong, he's bigger than Marquez, and he's flashy, and he has that speed. So I think it'd be a good fight, but I would favor Broner at this point. That's just my honest opinion. Next question is from Leno DiBiase. Do you think AB missed weight on purpose because he came in at 138 his last fight? I don't think he did on purpose. I think he just had too much weight to cut, and he couldn't make the cut. He couldn't make the amount of cut that was needed. And if he would have tried to go beyond that, then he would have been weak for the Theopain fight. And he was just probably like, fuck it. I know I'm moving up to welterweight after this. I'm not going to kill myself and re-weigh in. I'm going to go get something to eat, beat Ashley Theopain, and move up to welterweight. So I think he had a good idea that he wanted to move up to welterweight. Therefore, he was just like, I'm not going to kill myself or go above and beyond. Broner's the type, he just said in the interview, he doesn't care what people think. So he doesn't care that it makes him look unprofessional. It is what it is, and he knew he was moving up. Next question, the main man. Do you think it's better for Broner to stay at 140? Not really. He has 2 fights at 47, plus the catchweight fight with Sean Porter. It's just no matter what, he's surrounded by good competition at 140 and 147. Because if he stays at 140, I mean, who's he gonna fight? Hank Lundy, a guy he used to spar with. You know what I mean? Like that, people would want to see him naturally fight Terrence Crawford or Victor Postal, who are huge threats to his style anyway. So what's the difference? I mean, if he goes up, he's going to be fighting bigger guys like Kell Brook and Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, Robert Guerrero. So, I mean, either way, he's surrounded by talent. So I wouldn't advise him to stay at a weight division that he's grown out of for whatever reason, because then that's detrimental, because now you're struggling to make weight. So if he's struggling, he just needs to move up. And that's what it is. But either way, he's surrounded by talent. So there's tough fights at 140 if he were to stay. Same thing with 147. Next question, Justin Davis. Hey, Ego, haven't asked a question in a while. How do you feel about Lomachenko offering Nicholas Walters $300 from his own purse? Do you think it's a good plan to make Walters fight? No. And does this show what kind of fighter Loma is? Thank you, bro. I mean, it's a cool gesture, but when you really break it down, I wouldn't do that either. It has nothing to do with being scared or condoning ducking or whatever. If you're a fighter, you're putting your life on the line, you know that Loma is the HBO favorite, meaning HBO has backed and probably praised Lomachenko more than they have Nicholas Walters, things of that sort. You look at Nicholas Walters, his very last fight with Jason Sosa, a clear victory. He was robbed of a victory, and they said it was a draw. So what I'm saying is anything can happen in the sport of boxing. That being said, since anything can happen, I wouldn't trust a $300 side bet. And, oh, yeah, he's going to pay me an extra $300 should I win. Because what if he wins and then Vasyl Lomachenko doesn't? He said he could put it in the contract or whatever, but what if he doesn't get his money? You know what I mean? And if he has it like that, if that's the case, then why don't they write the contract for I think Vasyl Lomachenko's manager said they're offering Nicholas Walters $500,000. So if the promoter could just put an extra $300,000 if he were to win as a stipulation in the contract, why can't they just say, hey, we'll give you $800,000. The contract is for you to get $800,000, right? You're getting $800,000 unless you lose, right? The other thing is we interviewed Sergey Kovalev. There was a roundtable when he was out here in Oakland, and one of the questions was, Kovalev, did Jean Pascal, because they made another side bet kind of thing, and he says, did Jean Pascal pay you the $100,000 that he owed you for defeating him again in the rematch? And Kovalev said no, and that $100,000 was supposed to go to charity in Russia. So he's like, yeah, I go to the Russia orphanage, and people are asking like, oh, do you have the money? Do you have the money? And he's like, no, Pascal didn't pay me. So to answer your question, I wouldn't trust none of that. If you have the extra money to put in the pot, then it is what it is. But I wouldn't. There's too much that can go wrong in boxing. Like I said, if a accidental headbutt caused an early stoppage, like let's say Edeslandi Lara versus Vanes Martirosyan, that ended in a weird way. We didn't get to see a clear-cut traditional victory for either fighter, right? So I wouldn't trust it. There's too many Hank Lundy versus Mauricio Herrera situations like that happen where a gruesome cut and they got to stop it early and you don't get the full fight. So what happens in that with the $300,000? So I don't believe in these little side bet and little, oh, I'll pay this and put this on. No, just put it on the regular purse. I don't think that's doing enough to make the fight. And really, I think the promoter and HBO should be offering a lot more for this fight because it's a mega fight that the fans want. You know what I mean? Why are we having two elite level names in their division, Vasyl Lomachenko and Nicholas Walters, striving to be great, and we can only, or they can, or not we, they can only put up $1 million between the two of them or less than that? You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. Like, it's kind of like, how bad do you want it? That's a great fight. That should be great for ratings because it's a meaningful fight. And the budget is that tight. Just doesn't make sense. Next question. Cone Hybrid. Hey, Ego, do you know what is going on with Wilson Caden? No, I used to speak to him in comments and Twitter. I haven't heard from him at all. He kind of went ghost, MIA. Last time I heard, he started a new channel because his last one kept getting flagged by some of the promoters and networks and like PBC and Golden Boy or whoever, they were putting strikes on his account. So you can't monetize. You can do videos less than 15 minutes long when you have strikes on your account, things like that. So I think ultimately he was trying to do something good for boxing, do these breakdowns, taking the time to edit them and give kind of like these film studies. And for whatever reason, they were still, I think he could deal with the people hating on some of his angles. But when he started getting the quote unquote hate from PBC and the people who were flagging him, I think he probably just was like, man, this is too much. Like, I'm wasting my time. But I don't know. This is all what I believe because I haven't talked to him. But I think he was probably just like, this is too much work, and only to have my channel flagged, and I can't get paid from this. So if anyone else has a better story of what happened, let me know. Or if they have his contact or anything. Next question is from Dana ID Matthews. Hey, Boxing Ego, 5-1. Wow. Okay. What is your opinion on moving up and down a weight in general? Could you elaborate more on the difference between speed power of the different weight classes? How do you know what weight class to start at? How do you know when to move up or down? Are there any fighters that you think should move up or down? And could you explain why? P.S. Big fan of your channel. Your work ethic is inspiring. Keep up the good shit. Now, that's a lot of questions, so I don't know if I have time for the sake of this video not being too long. I don't know if I have time to answer all of those in detail. Can you elaborate the difference between speed power of the different weight classes? I'm not sure what I'm not sure what the question is with the speed. Elaborate on what? How do you know what weight class to start at? I would just say, depending on what you're walking around and whatever you're comfortable cutting, that you can cut and still be fully functional for the fight. Like, you don't want to deplete yourself to the point you're a skeleton and you're lethargic and have no energy. So whatever weight class, and then you also have to look at the market. There's certain weight classes that aren't popping, like 135. There's not really much action. So if you're a fighter and you're going to be in the 135, you might want to just move up to 140 where there's better fights if you can make that weight. How do you know when to move up or down? I mean, that's easy. That's probably the easiest out of all your questions. You know when to move up or down, and it's simply based on your body. The body is a very complex system. It's like a machine. It's very complex, and your body's going to tell you everything you need to know. It's just like when people get alcohol poisoning or food poisoning even, and they throw up because that's your body rejecting whatever's in your system, or you had too much alcohol, or whatever the situation is. No different. If you can't make weight like Broner, that was an indication that it's from here on out is going to be harder and harder for him to make 140 based on whatever he's done to his body in the last couple of years. And that 0.4, how he couldn't make it, and they said he was really trying, that's his body's way of telling him, hey, you got to move up. We can no longer, excuse me, we can no longer make this particular weight. So your body's going to tell you. Are there any fighters that you think should move up or down? And could you explain why? No, I mean, not particularly. I think Steve Cunningham needs to move down from heavyweight, and I think he did that. He has a fight coming up. I think it's on the Chris Algieri Earl Spence Jr. card. I think he's moving back to cruiserweight, so that would be an example of a fighter that needs to move down. Reason he needs to move down is because he's not a big heavyweight. He's not big enough to beat the top guys, in my opinion. He's a good fighter, heavy heart, stuff like that, but he's just simply not big enough to compete with these these Goliath people, like a 6'9" Tyson Fury. That's why he knocked him down. But you've seen what happened after Tyson Fury, big ass, got back up. He wore him down, leaned on him, and all this stuff, and ended up stopping him. Deontay Wilder, Luis King Kong Ortiz, those guys, you know what I mean? Ortiz is weighing like 240 to 250, 260. The guys are too big. Cruiserweight is where it's at for Steve Cunningham. He was like weighing in at like 215, 210, 205 and stuff. He's just simply not big in the heavyweight. And I don't think he had the type of power. Like, there's other guys that weren't that big. Like Evander Holyfield, he was from cruiserweight. He wasn't a huge heavyweight, but he had a hell of a chin and he had power too. So you have to at least be able to hold your own and get the respect of those guys. I can't really think of anyone else that I think has to move. There's other people like Chocolatito. He might want to move coming up, depending on if he can't get any good big fights. And then guys like Gennady Golovkin. You can't get the big fights at 160. I understand you want to unify, but if that's not feasible, people on the other side, and there's promotional wars and Cold War, people don't want to fight you. You got to do something with your legacy at age 33, 34, period. And there's a lot of people who've called you out at 168. James DeGale, Gilberto Ramirez, Jesse Hart, Carl Froch at one point. He was retired. Who knows? Ward when he was at 68. So there's tons of guys waiting and chomping at the bit to fight you. So again, you have to decide what you want for your legacy. Unifying's cool, but guys like Sergio Martinez, when he knocked Paul Williams out, people were afraid to fight him at 54. Nobody really wanted to fight him. They're like, oh, you see what he did to Paul Williams? This dude's a threat. Because if you know your boxing, Paul Williams, Sergio Martinez, the first fight was a war. And he did that in the rematch. So to put that type of emphasis and exclamation point on a rematch was big for Sergio Martinez. They're like, Matavia ain't no problem. I mean, he ain't no joke and stuff like that, because the first fight was very competitive with Paul Williams and Sergio Martinez, and to come and emphatically just knock somebody out like he did to Paul Williams in the second fight, nobody wanted to smoke with him at 154. They didn't want to fight him. So what did he do? He moved up where he wasn't that big of a middleweight either, and he started fighting guys who had been fighting at middleweight. You know what I mean? Guys with cracks like Kelly Pavlik and stuff like that. And he dogged Kelly Pavlik. So Golovkin might have to do the same thing. Next question is from Ivan Georgiev. Hi, Ego. What is wrong on U.S. media? Why they don't appreciate skillful fighter like Ward? The media has a lot to do with it. A lot of times the media, they blast in your face and kind of brainwash the fans. So it's hard to like somebody when your source of boxing is not even supporting or condoning that fighter. Like if Ward's on HBO, or you go to a certain website that covers boxing and all the articles are negative, it's not going to make you inspired to want to learn more about Ward or to appreciate his style when you have people bashing his style. And just in general, I've said this before, I think America is a very big melting pot, and it's very diverse. So with that comes a lot of different people from different regions, and a lot of people hate and don't like certain styles or whatever the situation is when it comes to boxing. Americans are just overall kind of rude. You look at UK fans, they love their fighters to death. There's people, I'm not going to even say no names because I'm not trying to call nobody out like that, but there's some fighters that are like pretty much cans, or like almost like paper champion level fighters. Like they really aren't that good. Like they come to America and fight some of these American champions or some of these guys from Mexico or something, they'll get destroyed. But the UK fans love them and support them, and that's just what it is. Different demographics hold their own community down differently, and a lot of times in America you don't get that. And I have another question. What do you think will happen with Canelo and Golovkin if some of the Charlo brothers move up to 160 and others stay at 154 after a couple fights? Still going to be hard to make because both of Canelo and Golovkin are fighting at HBO. Charlo's with Al Heyman. So until I see some more big fights made where Al Heyman fighters, yeah, you're getting Amir Khan, Canelo. But I still got to see more lower level fights happen. Dominic Wade, Triple G, okay. I just have to see more and more before I would think that something like that would happen. Plus, from the handlers of Canelo and Triple G, it looks like they're not putting their fighters in with certain styles. Like you look at Canelo at 54, there's a lot of rematch. It doesn't look like they have any interest in ever rematching him. Demetrius Andrade fight. You got the Charlo brothers who are at 54. And those are all slick, skilled fighters that Canelo has struggled with that style. A lot of Mayweather, Trout even. He struggled with that style more so than a James Kirkland. And who is he fighting now? Not someone who's a slickster, Amir Khan, who some people question his durability in lighter divisions. Triple G, same thing. Lada's been calling him out for years. a year, at least a year and a half, and they just keep, the narrative is how nobody wants to fight Triple G. Why would you not want to fight Lara? People would probably give you more credit for knocking Lara out than Dominique Wade, because the fact is most people haven't seen Dominique Wade, and no one's really seen him on a grand scale, big fights. He's never been in a HBO pay-per-view that I know of. Next question is from Ash Sarine Nutritious. I don't know what that is. It's late. So when Broner can't shed 0.4 pounds, don't you think Canelo's 5 pounds off is ridiculous? Bingo. Broner can't shed this because I think, in my personal opinion, I think he abused his body in the last few years, partying too hard, drinking, doing stuff, not necessarily always training like an athlete and stuff like that. So Canelo, being a lineal middleweight champion, expecting someone to come off 5 pounds who hasn't had to do that in probably over a decade, like a Gennady Golovkin, makes no sense. Period. Golovkin, I understand A-side and stuff like that, but I mean, just come on. You're already going to probably get most of the pot, and you're the champion. It'd be one thing if you weren't a champion and this wasn't for middleweight titles. Next question, Jay Peso. Why is no one talking about junior middleweight contender Julian Williams? Isn't he the most dangerous man at 154? He's one of them. And the reason, I don't know why a lot of people aren't talking about J-Rock. I mean, he doesn't have anyone on his resume. A lot of people don't want to fight him. He doesn't have any big names on his resume. And that's just kind of what it is. At this point, he just has to keep grinding and keep making his statements, because eventually you're going to keep knocking down doors. They'll have no choice but to fight you. But at this moment, I think he's such a skilled fighter, such a threat, such a danger, that until he makes a little bit more noise, people have an excuse for the meantime. Right now, they have an excuse not to fight him. Same thing happened with Lara. Lara called out Canelo years before he actually got the fight. And it took for him to jump on the stage to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. But there's nothing new for skilled fighters, dangers, and threats and stuff like that to have to wait longer. You know what I mean? They hope you get vulnerable, hope you get knocked out, hope you lose, hope you look suspect, things like that. So hopefully he just keeps winning, keeps doing his thing, and when the time's right and when people have no choice but to fight him, then he gets his phone call. Next question is from Giovanni Villalobos. What's up, Ego? How do you think Mayweather versus AB fight would play out? Mayweather all the way. I personally think Floyd stops him. What do you think? Keep up the hard work, bro. Stoppage is possible. It would be a late stoppage, possibly. I would say maybe even, I would probably, the safe bet is a decision, because Mayweather hasn't stopped anyone really since Ortiz or Ricky Hatton. And being that Broner is athletic, young, strong, I don't know if Mayweather would take extra gambles when he's clearly beating him, you know what I mean, to like press for a stoppage. And Broner, a lot of people will sleep on this, but his second fight at welterweight after jumping up from 35 was against Maidana. And he lasted the 12 rounds of that. So I don't know that Mayweather would stop him. I don't think it's out of the question, because I don't think Mayweather's as quote-unquote pillow-fisted and stuff. And that pillow-fisted stuff is retarded, because if you know anything about boxing, when you're getting beat down, discouraged, fatigue kicks in, all that pillow-fisted stuff doesn't even matter as much, because Mayweather's not, I think Mayweather, with his precision, his speed, his timing, has more power. He's not like a Paulie Malignaggi or even a Tim Bradley. I think he has way more power than both those guys. He has respectable power. It just might not be thudding, I'll destroy you with single shots at 147 type of power. So it's possible he could stop Broner, but based on Broner looking pretty durable with Maidana and things like that, I don't know. I don't know if it would do that or a decision, but either way, I can't picture Broner winning him and beating him. It's like Danielson versus Mr. Miyagi, as far as I'm concerned. Everything Broner does, Floyd just does better. And the other thing is, Floyd probably anticipated this moment, because he said in the Fight Hype interview, he says, watching the Theopain fight, Broner won, which is most important, but I've seen a lot of mistakes. So I think he's eyeballed Broner. He's had him in the gym. He's helped train him. He's seen, you know what I mean, for the Sean Porter fight, Broner was training in the TMT gym. So it's probably even worse from Broner, because this whole time, as a fighter, Broner's so worried about partying and stuff and throwing change at Walmart, he doesn't realize that Mayweather is smart and strategic. Mayweather's probably been sizing him up since day one, seeing his flaws, because that's the type of fighter he is. Mayweather always says it's like, oh, I don't watch tape. Bullshit. I really don't. I would tell Floyd that to his face. I think that's either if Floyd doesn't watch tape, then he's literally TBE without any question. If you don't have to watch tape and you're just that good with adjusting, then he has to be TBE. But I mean, I really think he watches tape. I can't prove it, but I think it's almost impossible that he just knows fighters' patterns and habits and he's not watching no tape of them. I don't think that. So I think he's a student of the game, Floyd Mayweather, and I think he studies and picks apart what people do, and he looks at mistakes and like, oh, his feet are too wide. He's out of position. Oh, he did this. Every time he jabs, he brings it back slow. I think he's processing all of that. That's what makes him great when it comes to making those adjustments. So he's probably been sizing Broner up from day one, seeing what Broner does right and wrong, and he's been up and close and personal with Broner, seen him in the doghouse gym sparring, had him training for the Porter fight, etc. So that makes it worse for Broner because Broner, to me, is not as strategic. So he's probably just having a good time, like, oh yeah, I'm in Big Bro's gym, and Sean Porter, he in the Uber and just clowning around. And he's not thinking about stuff like that. He's not thinking about, oh, what if I ever fought Floyd? You know what I'm saying? But from what it sounds like, Floyd has always thought Broner was kind of immature. Next question. Broly28. What's good, Ego? Here's my question. The issue that Broner has with Floyd, do you think it's real? Yeah, I mean, I would say it's real. If so, do you think that would be enough to bring Floyd out for fight 50? And do you think Floyd will get the same ridicule as he did for choosing to fight Berto? No, I mean, the Berto fight was, well, people are just gonna hate, but people won't hate on the Broner fight like that because Broner has fought at 47 before. Broner, it's just such a great backstory with trash talking. People wouldn't care. Berto's not really a huge trash talker. I mean, maybe a little bit with Victor Ortiz and stuff like that, but he's not like a Broner, like where he's just gonna be like a shotgun mouth and stuff like that. So I don't think he'll get ridiculed. And Floyd, from what it sounds like in interviews, he doesn't have an interest in fighting Broner. So I don't know if that fight would happen. I don't know if Broner's not a certified pay-per-view star. So I think for a 50th fight, a Porter versus Thurman winner, Kell Brook maybe, or Canelo Khan, or Danny Garcia. Those are the fights that would probably lure him out of retirement. Danny Garcia is still undefeated, right? And he's been on pay-per-view before, like as a co-main event. Broner fought on a Mayweather pay-per-view too, but I don't think it was a co-main event. I think Amir Khan was the co-main event versus Collazo. So I don't know if Broner has what it takes to lure Floyd out. I think the fights that I just mentioned would probably have a better shot of luring Floyd out for the 50th fight. Because Floyd, at this point, he's probably looking for the paycheck, like who's going to bring me the most money type of thing. What fight? So we'll see. Santos Aranda says, who is a bigger threat to Mayweather, Broner, Swift, or One Time? Which would you prefer to see for his 50th? I mean, that depends. If Keith Thurman beats Porter, I would say that's the biggest threat. And I would say that would be the one I would want to see the most. Keith Thurman would be the biggest threat if he can get past Sean Porter. Next question is from Calvin Phelps. Ego, do you believe Mayweather-Broner doesn't happen? Do you think AB's first fight back at 47 will be a title shot? I don't think so. I think he'll fight Ortiz-Berto winner, Josito Lopez, Robert Guerrero, something like that. I don't think it'll be a title shot, though. Because I don't know if Al Heyman wants to. He just gave Broner a title shot versus Khabib Alec Verdiv. He put him in position and for a vacant title, and then Broner lost it, his first title defense on the scale. So I don't know if Al Heyman is going to immediately give him another plug and you know what I mean, a golden ticket to a title shot. That's my opinion. Next question is from Gandalf, New York. Yo, Ego, my man. My question, if Khan loses to Canelo, do you think interest and earnings for the Khan versus Brook fight will fall? Yes, it will definitely go down, It's still a fight that can be made, though. Or do you see the fight being as big? See it as a big fight the fans would want to see? It's a fight people would still pay to see, even if depends on how bad he loses to Canelo, and that's very speculative at this point because we don't even know if he'll lose. But if he were to lose, it's going to depend on how bad. But the worse he loses, the less the Brook fight will be desired, and the more the stock for Khan versus Brook will go down. Like if Canelo went in there and just dogged him and brutally knocked him out, you know what I mean? Like he face planted like Marquez did to Pacquiao, then obviously the Kell Brook Khan fight is going down exponentially. But if Khan holds his own and loses a tight decision and doesn't get knocked down or banged about too much, then you can still make the Brook fight with little hindrance to the numbers. People would just be like, oh, Khan was at least brave and held his own versus Canelo, things like that. So we just got to see. We got to wait and see what the Khan-Canelo outcome is to begin with. But my basic formula is this. If Khan is to lose, how the severity of how bad he loses to Canelo is going to determine how much the stock for Khan versus Brook goes down. Next question, Xavier the Talented. What's up, Ego? With the Ortiz versus Berto coming up, part 2, if Victor wins again in a dominant fashion, do you think he'll be a threat in the 147 division? If wrong, wait, let me know. Thanks. No, that's the right weight. It's happening at welterweight. Depends on how good he looks, because I've seen situations where a guy wins and it's not an impressive win. But if Victor Ortiz went out and looked dominant versus Berto, that's a good sign to life, but it doesn't, to me, indicate that he's ready for Porter Thurman. Victor Ortiz, if he looks dominant, he still has demons that I feel he has to bury. He has to bury hatchets with before people give him the credit of like, oh, he's back, he's new and improved, because he has that, he showed that quitter, frustrated mentality when the going gets tough, and that's just a fact. The Floyd fight, the Maidana fight, Josito Lopez fight, etc. So one win is not going to change that, especially a win against Berto. Berto's solid. Berto's coming off of a loss, that type of thing. So dominating Berto, who's not the top 5 of the division right now, is not a telltale sign that he's a threat. But if Victor Ortiz is mentally right, he can be a threat. But I still see the same behavior. Victor Ortiz was with Joel Diaz for like 2 fights, and then now I heard Joel Diaz is saying that he left him, and because he wanted to be with his friends in Hollywood and stuff like that. So I still see Victor Ortiz having some disciplinary problems that would prevent him from being a real threat to 147, to the big guys like the Kell Brooks. And stylistically and his physical God-gifted attributes, he really could be, if he uses athletic ability to his full potential and was mentally strong, he could be a threat to anybody out there. But based on what I've seen and past performances, mentally, if you're not mentally strong, then you're not really much of a threat, because other guys like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Danny Garcia, they've all proven to be pretty solid up top. You know what I mean? Danny Garcia was in a hellish fight with Peterson, held on. He was in the tough last 3 rounds with Zab Judah. He was in there with a big puncher like Matisse. Difficult-ass fight with Mauricio Herrera. And he made it, you know what I mean, made it through all those fights. Whether you thought he won, lost, whatever. Mentally tough. So Victor Ortiz has more to prove, and one fight won't change that. Now, this question is from my YKZ. Hey, Ego, my question is, I think Broner could have made 140 easy, to be honest. I thought if he shaved the beard, he would have been on weight, because the beard does carry weight. I'm a fan of Broner, but I think 147 is too much at the time. I think Broner beats Brook. Hell no, I don't, but that's just my opinion. What do you think about the matchup? I think he'll get destroyed. And you think Broner could make 140 because his last fight, he was at 138 the weigh-in? No, from what it sounds like, I've seen interviews with Broner. He was depleted. And this happens when you cut. I'm trying to explain that. The best way to explain it is your body reaches a certain threshold. Broner's problem is, well, like if you go look at the video where he was talking about Floyd, he's shirtless and he's talking about Floyd in his bedroom or something, and he has no shirt on. He looks big, and this was right like maybe a week and a half or whatever before the fight, where he was like, oh, if it's fuck me, it's got to be fuck TMT. It's got to be fuck you, Floyd. I don't like the way you keep running to the media. But look at him in that. He looks big. He looks big. So the thing is, Broner's thing is, off season, when he doesn't have a fight, he's gaining too much weight. Therefore, in training camp, he's sparring and stuff, and then he's making his weight cut. He's cutting too much weight. So I think he was really depleted to the point where he tried to lose that 0.4, but it was probably hard. Because his body was like, if he would have did more, then he would have physically been on, you know what I mean, the point of dehydration and exhaustion, and probably wouldn't be fight fit to fight Ashley Theophane, you know what I mean? So, and that just stems from trying to crash down and cut too much weight too quick. And then as far as Brook and Broner, I give Broner really no shot. He can make it interesting for a few rounds. I just don't think his style would be good for Brook, and especially right away off the bat. If anything, he needs to get some other seasoning at 147, because look at it. Name one fight Broner has had at 144 or above where he looks sensational. Maidana, Sean Porter. I mean, you knocked Sean Porter down 1 round and lost 11 rounds. Maidana, I had him losing most rounds. He was losing the first 4 or 5 rounds with Paulie Malignaggi. So again, I got to see more from Broner to give me the indication that he could beat Brook or any top guy at 147. That's just my opinion. Any of the top like 3 guys. Last question, sport guy. Who wins between Broly and Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Now, I don't even know who Broly is, so I guess that wraps up the show. I think you meant Broner, and if that's the case, I answer that. I would certainly pick Floyd Mayweather. Too many tricks. He's probably studied Broner, and he just has a better arsenal, better defense. He's more precise with his punches. Like, if you look at the Ashley Theophane fight, Broner had Theophane hurt, and he started winging shots. Floyd is more accurate. You know what I mean? Broner needs to work on his accuracy, especially when he has his opponent hurt, because he started ripping shots that if they would have hit Theophane, they would have been all bad, but he was missing kind of wildly at parts. And Broner's fighting in spurts. He fights flat-footed. Floyd would dance all around him, pot shot him. And if Floyd, I don't know, Floyd just mixes it up too much. He can fight off the ropes. He can fight on the inside. He has 72-inch arms, which are probably longer than Broner's. So I would pick Floyd Mayweather certainly to beat Broner. Let me know how you guys think I did this week. I try to get to a lot of questions, and I'll be back next week. Make sure you like my video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.